Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I wanted to talk about the narcissistic hoover, when it's going to happen, and what it looks like. Some of you might be wondering if the narcissist is going to reach back out to you again because maybe it's been a while and you haven't heard from them. Maybe they have a new supply, maybe they don't. And you're kind of just sitting around waiting for the next shoe to drop, waiting to hear from them again. I thought that I wouldn't ever hear from my ex again because I totally unmasked him. A lot of times, if you do unmask the narcissist, they won't reach back out to you because they put so much time and effort into crafting this fake life and this fake persona. And to have you totally unmask it and figure out the truth and even expose it to others, they freak out. They don't want you to see the real person underneath the mask. So if you have unmasked them, they kind of get out of Dodge and they do disappear. And it's not uncommon for you to just never hear from them again. Sometimes, even if you do unmask them, they will circle back around. It really just depends on the narcissist and also what they think they can get from you. If you were a really great source of supply and you were kind of a doormat and maybe they cheated on you or they lied a lot, and even after all of that, you still took them back and tried to make the relationship work, they know that you're extremely forgiving. They're counting on you being a little naive, still desperately in love with them, wanting to give the relationship one more try. And if they think that they'll get something back out of you, they will circle back around to you at some point. It might not be now, but at some point you will hear from the narcissist again. I would say like at least 95% of the time, you would hear from them again at some point, even if you've unmasked them. If you're not hearing from them, I think they're just getting supply elsewhere and their tank isn't empty yet. So they just put you on a shelf because they know this person, was a good source of fuel for me. I was always able to get this, I was able to get that. Maybe they wanted sex, money, a place to live, attention, sympathy. They always want adoration. Whatever it was that you supplied for them, sometimes even just transportation, or maybe you always gave them food. They will use people for absolutely anything. They are extreme opportunists. So they'll keep a complete shelf of different supplies. And they're never totally done with anybody. I actually thought I would never hear from my ex again because I did totally unmask him. If you listen to my other videos, I talked about how he pretended to be an Iraq war veteran for the entirety of our relationship. And he went really, really far with that lie and that persona. And I ultimately found out that he wasn't in Iraq. And, I kicked him out. He went off to rehab. And when he was in rehab, I found out he had an affair prior. Not in rehab, but I found out from one of his friends that he had cheated on me in the beginning of our relationship. So I confronted him about that. He, of course, denied it. And I said, don't ever talk to me again. He immediately moved on to his new supply source that he met in rehab and shacked up with her, got out of rehab, and he did make contact. There was about 2 months that I didn't hear from him while he was in rehab. And, it's because they're working their new supply. Think back to your relationship in the beginning. They spent every single second blowing your phone up, giving you attention, writing you love letters, learning every single thing that they could about you so they could then mirror it back to you and make you appear like your soulmates. Like, wow, I found this guy and he has everything in common with me. So it's a full-time job when they're grooming a new supply. And they don't have time to dick around and reach out to old supply sources. So if you're not hearing from them, it's just because they're spending time trying to groom somebody else. And so there was 2 months where I didn't hear from him because he was totally manipulating and grooming this new supply source. And then he got out of rehab and did reach out to me, but he had a bunch of stuff at my house. So I knew he was going to reach out at some point to get his things. And of course, he pretends he's sober and happy and so in love, blah, blah, blah. He lied to me about his new supply. He told me he didn't meet her in rehab. He told me she was a friend of his, and that when he got out on a pass from rehab, they went to a barbecue and she was there through friends, whatever. So he didn't even want me to know she was a drug addict. He lied about the number of kids she had. He told me she had less children than she really does, and she lost custody of all of her kids. And he was really trying to class her up so that I would be jealous of her. I don't do drugs. I don't have any children. If I did, I certainly wouldn't lose custody of them because of a drug addiction. So I think he felt like she was a downgrade in terms of, um, there were just things about her lifestyle that I didn't do. And also, I was able to provide more as far as a place to live, things like that. She lived with like roommates in an attic, and it was like a whole different situation. But anyway, so he reached back out to brag about his life. And then at that point, he actually overdosed on heroin a week after moving in with her, and only a month after getting out of rehab. She reached out to me when his overdose happened. Me and her got to talking, and that's when I found out that he was lying about a lot of things about her losing custody of her kids, her also being a drug addict and things like that. So once, and then at that point, he knew I knew the truth. And then I never heard from him again. So he disappeared. He wanted to pretend he had this happy life and he was doing really good without me. And he moved on to a better person and he's in love and, yada, yada. Well, then once I unmasked that lie and found out that their relationship wasn't what it appeared, and he was in fact doing drugs during their relationship as well, and he hadn't changed, he disappeared. And 4.5 months went by, and I didn't hear a peep from him. And I really thought that I would never hear from him again. And I think what was going on is he was just grooming her. He was manipulating her. She let him move back into his house again. And he really, it's a full-time job. They have to dedicate themselves to grooming and manipulating and brainwashing the new supply. After 4.5 months, he reaches out to me at midnight from an unblocked number because I had him blocked. I had his Facebook blocked. And he just sends me this crazy rant about you're fat, you're ugly, you look like a pig, you look like Shrek. And he literally just went crazy. I have no idea what, caused him to do this. I think he was having a narcissistic meltdown. I think he realized his life with the new supply that I feel like he probably thought he wasted all his time grooming this new supply source because she didn't turn out to be as much of a fuel source as I was. With me, he lived in my house. I waited on him hand and foot. He basically had everything he wanted. And in their relationship, it was different. She lived with roommates. They had to rent an attic. He ultimately got kicked out again for doing heroin a second time. And I think he was just having some sort of narcissistic meltdown. And they don't take any accountability for their own actions in the relationship, and they'll just blame you. And I think he was missing the life I provided. He doesn't miss me. They don't love you. They don't care about you as a person. They don't miss you as the person that you are, but they miss the life that you provided them and the things that you did for them and how you made life easy. I made his life easy. And I don't think his life is easy these days. And I think he was raging and angry and upset and bitter and was like, you know what? This bitch broke up with me and she took away my lap of luxury. She took everything away. I had somebody who was a maid. I had whatever I wanted. And now he doesn't have that. So he totally had this meltdown and messaged me at midnight and was just crazy. So at some point, you're going to hear from the narcissist again. Now, I don't know I think it's rare for them to just randomly text you the way my ex did, like with crazy stuff, calling you names. I think most Hoovers are them trying to actually get back with you, not them attack you in this weird meltdown rage like my ex did. I think typically maybe 6 months will go by. The narcissist has walked off into the sunset with the new supply. You're sitting here trying to put the pieces back together and recover. And maybe you haven't heard from them 6 months. Okay. All of a sudden, you might get an email from them and it'll be, a profession of love. All of a sudden, I've realized my mistakes. I'm sorry. I want to work things out. I love you. This new person, this new relationship just proved to me how special and amazing you are and how much I love you and how much me and you belong together. Because, me and her, we fight all the time, and she's this awful person, and she's not like you. She doesn't have your big heart, and you're beautiful and you're amazing. And, I've finally realized this, and I really do want to make it work. That's usually the type of nonsense that they will approach you with during a typical Hoover. They'll promise you the world. It's almost like a new love bombing stage. and they'll sit there and tell you how amazing you are and how much they love you and how much they've missed you and they want to try again. Now, what's going on with that is they probably just aren't getting any fuel. So they reach out to you because, your pump always provided fuel before. So now they're trying to reach back out for more fuel because they know that you're probably going to give it. So they're going through a fuel drought. So they reach out to you. Or, this is just part of their game. They probably have sent this message to like 3 of their exes. They're just seeing who bites. And the second you come back, they're just gonna like put you through the same hamster wheel of BS like they always did. A lot of times they hoover you just to punish you all over again. Maybe they're mad because you did expose something about them or you figured them out or whatever. And so they want to come back in your life to be like a dick and make you suffer all over again by reeling you in with these false promises and then discarding you. So that is one of the things that they do. And a lot of times what they'll sit there and promise things that maybe you wanted during the relationship, for example. A lot of times they'll say, like when you were with them, like let's say you guys were married and your relationship, they're fully devaluing you at this point. So they're being a jerk, they're being distant, they're not being affectionate or intimate or anything. I mean, you know the deal, we've all lived it. And maybe you suggested going to counseling, couples therapy, whatever, and you suggested this to the narcissist and they were like, no, I'm not going to that, whatever. um, when they try to do the hoover, suddenly they will say they're going to do all the things that they know you wanted them to do before but they never did. So if they know that you really wanted to do marriage counseling, they'll come back with that promise. Oh, I'm totally dedicated this time around, and I'm definitely open to the marriage counseling, and I want to do that and give it one more try and whatever. Maybe one of your gripes was that you didn't spend much time with the narcissist. Maybe they hung out with their friends more than you, or whatever. They like to sit alone and sulk sometimes, and if they're an alcoholic or a drug addict or whatever, my ex liked to kind of like be alone and do his drugs. And, maybe you were kind of like, look, I want us to spend more time together. That'll be one of the promises that they come back with. Oh, in their little email to you, they'll say, oh, you were right. I want us to try again. And, I need to be more dedicated to spending more time together and going to therapy. If one of the issues was that they were an addict of some kind and maybe you wanted them to go to rehab, this is something that was in my relationship, and he refused to go to rehab, they'll come back and, oh, I'm going to go get help. I'm going to change. So they will literally promise you the world just to get that response from you, just to get that fuel. They're not serious. Whatever they say they're going to do in these texts, phone calls, emails, whatever, they're lying. They're not going to do that stuff. If they were, they would have done it the first time. They wouldn't have just ditched you and moved on to some other fuel source and then ignored you for 6 months. They don't do that, okay? When someone loves you and they're serious about changing, they don't do the things the narcissist does. So this is just manipulation again. That's all they do is manipulate. And this is just him trying to get another chance to manipulate you, use you, extract more fuel, and get whatever they can from you. Sometimes they'll do it more at a distance. Like, they might not just straight up email you and pour out their heart, allegedly, and, tell you they love you and this and that. Sometimes they'll do something, like maybe they blocked you on social media. So let's say they disappeared and they ran off with the new supply, and then maybe they blocked your Facebook page, and you're kind of like, what the hell? Like, really? You just ghost me and then run off with this new person, and now you block me? Like, what? And so you're sitting here confused and whatever. Maybe, 6 months, a year, whatever. A nice chunk of time goes by and you're rebuilding yourself. You're dealing with the nonsense that they left behind. All of a sudden, one day, you might notice that you're not blocked on their Facebook anymore. Their name pops up. This is more of like a hoover from a distance. Maybe they're afraid that when you expose them, before that, whatever, like the way that it ended between the two of you, maybe they screwed you over so bad that they're not really sure if you're going to be susceptible to a hoover or not. So they don't want to totally put themselves out there and write this big letter and get rejected, because narcissists hate rejection. They freak out. They can't handle it. They have huge egos, but they have very fragile egos. And they're not going to make a move if they think you're just going to slam the door in their face. So that might be more of like a subtle, you know, something that they'll do from a distance. They're kind of like sharks. You see their fins sticking up out of the water. They're there. They don't have to swim up to you and bite you, but they're out there swimming around and you see them. So a lot of times they like to do things from a distance and just have their presence known. So they might just do something like unblock you on Facebook and wait for you to make the move. That way they don't have to get rejected by pouring their heart out in this long message to you. They unblock you and then they think, you know what? If she's going to be susceptible to a hoover, she'll reach out to me and say, hey, yeah, I noticed, I saw you on my Facebook. What's going on? And then that opens the door for them. They might do something too, like call you from a private number or a blocked number or whatever and hang up. And you'll know it's them because, again, they're like that shark out in the water. They know it's them. They don't need to swim up to you and whatever. They're out there swimming with their little fins sticking up out of the water. They're there. They're always just in the background all the time. They're watching your Facebook. They're trying to talk to your friends, trying to find out information about you. They are always looking for fuel. And if you provided fuel for them for any length of time, they never forget it. They put you on a shelf so they could come back, they could circle back around to you at some point later. Even if it was a situation like me and my ex where you've totally exposed them, they still can come back for negative fuel. I think my ex knew that I would never get back with him in a million years, so he didn't try that tactic. Instead, he just called me names and acted like an immature child because he wanted a negative reaction from me, because that's still a reaction. It's still acknowledging their existence, and that's what they want. They get positive fuel and negative fuel. So if they know they can't get a positive reaction from you, they'll try to get the negative. They'll get anything. They're desperate. They are literally desperate. So they will, at some point, hoover you. I guarantee you, it might not be for a couple years. It might be for a while. And all that means is that they just have other sources. They're just getting fuel from other areas, but they'll be back. They will 100% be back. And it doesn't mean that they necessarily try to get back with you. They might just do some negative, immature stuff like my ex did to try to extract negative fuel from you. They might just randomly unblock you on Facebook, something subtle. They don't have to go all the way and, show up at your front door with a bouquet of roses and chocolates and, a diamond ring or whatever. They don't have to do the grand gestures. They could just do something little, like calling you from a private number and hanging up, knowing that you're going to know it's them, so that you could send them a message, hey, did you try to call me? And then the door is now open. A lot of times, too, since they're opportunists, with this time of year, it's tax season. Tax season is upon us. And since they are major opportunists, they'll use this time to do a hoover. So you'll notice that this time of year, a lot of times the narcissist will reach out to old fuel sources, trying to get their hands on some money. A lot of times they'll reach out at your birthday or their birthday or Christmas, maybe hoping to get presents from you. Maybe hoping that you'll get them a birthday gift or a Christmas gift or whatever. They are major opportunists and they will use any opportunity they can to manipulate and con and use and extract fuel. That's all they live for. So since it is tax season, I would say definitely beware. They're out there and they will probably try to reach out to you sometime here shortly. You want to resist that hoover. Don't give them any fuel, including negative. I know it can be really difficult because you want to tell them to fuck off, but they just get off on that. So block them, go no contact, change your phone number. I had to change mine. Move if you can. I moved away. Thank God. I changed my number. I've done everything I can. And yet the narcissist is still out there. He actually blocked my mom on Facebook when he got out of rehab because I think he was afraid of my mom. My mom is kind of the type to really say how she feels. She doesn't, she's sort of a straight shooter. And I think he was afraid of her messaging him and perhaps exposing him or something. I don't really know, but he blocked my mom. The other day, my mom goes, yeah, evidently he unblocked me on Facebook because he popped up on my Facebook. And I'm like, what? So she blocked him. And, like, they're just so creepy. I mean, it's like, really? Now you're, like, unblocking my mom on Facebook to try to get a reaction? They will do anything. He was recently sending my friends on Facebook friend requests too. These are people he's never met, never talked to, doesn't know them. And, he's doing that now to try to get a reaction from me or whatever he's up to. So these people are very persistent. They never go away. And it might not be, he didn't do any of this until almost 5 months of no contact. And that's when he started the stalking and the craziness. So it probably just hasn't happened yet. Give it time. They will come back into your life, unfortunately. But I promise you, you might think so now that you want them to hoover you, but you really don't. You really, really don't, because he's a nightmare. I really wish that he would just totally go away and leave me alone. It's not, you don't want a hoover. They are definitely unhinged, creepy people, and you don't want them, stalking you or trying to get anything. They've gotten enough from you. They really have. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.